Hello, we're back.
Hi. Yay, art licensing lab. I feel like
Yeah,
we
this,
need some kind of intro song like we have for
ooh,
our podcast.
yeah, maybe a theme song. Could you work on that for
Art
us?
licensing lab. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
All right, so what is the art
Just
licensing
something I've
lab?
I've been noodling on. I don't know.
We're always noodling. So we are doing a series. This is episode 3 of the Art Licensing Lab. And basically, we're going to talk all things art licensing. And today is going to be focused on answering questions, some that we've received from you and some that we've just gotten asked all the time. So feel free in the chat to ask us questions as we go, and we'll
Yeah.
answer them on the fly.
And
And
hello to those of you who are joining us. We've got Oliver. Hi, Oliver. Hi, Jack. Hi, Penny.
hi. Oh, I
Love it to
love the
see
name
y'all here.
Penny.
Yeah, love to see y'all in the Behance feed. Let's get
Love
our
that.
YouTube folks saying hey in the chat as well and tell us where you're joining from.
Yeah.
I'm in Austin, Texas,
What's your
the
name
land
again?
of tacos. Me? Oh,
Yeah.
I'm Katie.
So nice to meet you.
I'm
Um,
Katie.
yeah, I'm Ilana. I'm the other half of GoodType. And at GoodType, we are a community of people who love letters. I know it's really shocking. You would never figure that out from our name. But Katie and I are both lettering artists, graphic designers, and we have sort of grown our business through licensing our work. And so we
Yeah.
always want to find opportunities to let other artists in on this income stream, which often feels very mysterious. And so we want to take an opportunity to just answer questions about this industry and how you can get started in it. And so that's going to be the focus of today. We're excited.
Yeah,
Let's do
hands
it.
up in the chat if you have even heard about licensing or if this is your first time hearing about licensing. We kind of want to know where y'all are at. Oh,
Yeah.
Indira is joining from Miami. Hey,
Ooh.
Miami, get some
Ooh,
of
yeah.
the spicy heat up in here.
I love that. It's
Oh,
been
I might just have
actually,
to sneeze.
oh,
That
it's
was a big
actually
one.
been unseasonably cold here. We've had like 2 weeks of rain. And so I'm gonna pretend that I'm just transporting me and my computer over to Miami beaches right now. Sounds
Ooh, but
great.
we've got Tara in BC in Canada, which
Hi, love
is
that.
one of my favorite areas of Canada. My
Amazing.
husband's Canadian, so we are in Canada fairly often.
Love that.
Yeah, so
Cool.
we got all sorts of different places. Dallas. Hi, everyone.
Hi. Yeah, get those questions ready. We're gonna just do like an informal Q&A today and talk about all the questions that we get in our DMs on repeat, basically.
Yeah,
And if you have anything that comes up while we're chatting, one of us will always be looking at the chat. So we'll happy to answer those. And if you think of something later, you can join us on the Discord channel as well. And it'll be really fun to go over these because some of them are will take us for a wild ride, but some of them will be really
yeah.
straightforward. So it's gonna be good.
Well,
Cool.
why don't we start with a quick reminder of an intro to our licensing? We've been kind of tacking this on to the beginning of every session, just in case
Yeah.
you're joining us for the first time, you've never heard of this weird, mysterious thing called art licensing. So basically, Alana and I both fell into art licensing on accident.
Yep.
We were creating stationery and greeting cards, and Alana had these amazing planners that we were selling on our own, and we were producing those things on our own and holding the inventory and doing the shipping, which is my favorite part. Do you hear the sarcasm in my voice?
You
And
literally will like avoid it like the plague, basically.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Something about it, oof, just boils my blood. But
Yeah.
we were doing those things, and because we wanted to like get our art onto products and see our art out in the world and let people like interact with it. But the downside was like all of those other things that come with it. You make the art and then you have to manage everything.
Right.
So I was started posting my greeting cards on Instagram, and then companies started messaging me saying, oh, this is cool. I'm a greeting card company. Can we license your designs? And I was like, yeah, of course I know what that is. No, I had no idea. So I Googled it as you do, and I learned that art licensing basically means you create the art and then you rent it out to other companies who then they will manage the production, the shipping, the marketing, the customer service, all of that kind of stuff. So I was like, hey, this is a pretty cool
Give me
deal.
some of that.
Yeah, give me some of that. So that's kind of my origin story into it.
Yeah.
Alana's was very similar as well.
Very weirdly similar for not having met before. And the best part is that it becomes really passive. And so as the artist, you get to focus on making the artwork, but then you just don't have to worry about the rest of it. So, 18 months later, you might get a royalty check for, let's say, a couple $100s for something where you made the artwork and then just like signed the contract and bing,
Hmm.
bang, boom. So it's really, really different from freelance. And so today specifically, we're going to talk about all those differences. I'm actually going to see if I can hide my doc real quick because I'm noticing that that might be distracting for you. So my thing might come up real quick. Um, if I can remember how to hide it. Mm, mm, mm,
What are you
mm.
trying to hide?
I'm going to hide my doc. You can see my
Like the
doc.
oh,
You
doc.
see? Yeah, yeah,
Got it.
yeah.
I was
I'm just going
thinking
to make
like
it,
your Illustrator doc
I'm going
is
to
what
make
I
it
thought
real
you were saying.
tiny because
Got
I
it.
can't even remember. I don't
There.
have
Yeah, it's
the
tiny.
great.
It's
Okay.
tiny now.
So, yeah, let's dive into some of the first questions. I already see a couple questions
Hmm.
in the chat. And so we're going to cover that. That's a great question. If we don't get to it, Katie, you're on it. We're going to get to it.
No, we will get to it. Monica's asking how difficult is it to find your first art licensing opportunity and where do you recommend beginners look? So
Yeah,
let's
that's
uh let's keep
literally
that on the docket. Yeah.
it's actually on here. It's on one of the frequently asked questions, so we will
Perfect.
get to it.
Such a
These
good
are in
question, Monica.
It really is. These are in no particular order. So we're just going to dive right in, and some of this will come back
Should we
full
start
circle.
somewhere that's not agents though?
We
That's
can.
that's a little specific.
Let's actually start with outreach then, or portfolio. Katie, you tell me. Here's a little overview of what we're going to look at today.
Let's do portfolio.
Let's do it.
That
Okay.
seems like some good basic questions. Okay, so something to know about your art licensing portfolio is it works a little bit differently than your traditional freelance portfolio. And that's because when you have a freelance portfolio, you're showing examples of the type of custom projects that you take on. So you'll be like, oh, I did this for one client. I can do something similar for you, or we can do something totally different, but it's going to be customized for each specific client. And art licensing is completely different because you're actually pre-making the art and putting it into your portfolio ahead of time, and then the buyers are looking at that portfolio and picking things out as is and saying, I want to take this and I want to put it on my product. Like I'm going to wrap it around a water bottle, or I'm going to put it on curtains, or I'm going to put it on bedding, or I'm going to use it as a
Right.
graphic on a t-shirt. So we kind of use this analogy of your portfolio as like a menu in a restaurant, because in a restaurant you come in and you open the menu and you see the options of the things that the chef has already prepared that you can order off of, and maybe occasionally you'll be like, oh, I have a dietary restriction, can you change this little aspect of this dish for me? And that happens a lot in licensing too, where they'll be like, oh, I love this design, can you massage this color palette or something like that?
Yep. So one of the things that, as Katie was saying, you're making art and then it exists in your portfolio. So you're not often working for a client who's giving you the like client brief. And for some people that can be really, really challenging because, and tell me in the chat if this is you, but like if you sit down to make something, are you like, oh my God, what should I make? Like you have so
Yeah.
many ideas, but you just don't know where to start. And I think that's why talking about our portfolio first and talking about like what goes in it, what does it look like? That's the thing that I think people get the most stuck with is that oftentimes people will be like, I want to license this, but then they spend so much time creating things that are like for Instagram. And then they're like, oh, this actually doesn't make any sense for a product. And so
Hmm.
keep in mind that the people who you're going to work with, the potential clients, own product-based businesses and they're looking for anything to help sell their product. And so they might be a like a water bottle company or they might be a like but not only water bottles. Maybe,
Yeah,
but like a
we've
lot of
talked
the
a lot about water bottles. We
yeah,
just
I know.
love to be hydrated here at
Yeah.
GoodType.
I feel like we often work with companies that do a whole wide range. Maybe like stationery is a better example. So they make stationery products like notebooks, they make maybe notepads, desk accessories. Maybe they have like sets of pens. Maybe they have like cute little trinkets for your desk. And it's sort of like anything that you would find in that area of a store. But they're not like a special, I mean, they can be, but I'm saying in our experience, we work with these companies that they're not necessarily a specialty, only making one type of product. But anything they can do to make their product sell better, that comes down to the art, right? Of course, it can work for a specialty product as well, but in our experience, we've worked a lot with companies that do like a wide range of products. And so you want to make art that will work well on several different types of products. And so, for example, I literally have in front of me I'm actually shocked that this sold. I think we talked about this last week when we did the patterns. It looks like sprinkles, and it's actually paper table place settings. It's just like pieces of
Hmm.
paper. So that could also be like scrapbook paper. That could be paper plates, paper napkins. This specifically was licensed for paper placemats, which are just like disposable placemats.
Yeah.
Um,
Allison is saying anything for print, essentially. Yeah.
Literally
So,
anything
like
for print.
anything that has a surface, any kind of
Yeah,
product that has a place where you could fit art conceivably,
right.
that's a potential art licensing spot.
So if you have like a hard time reining in your own ideas to like make a portfolio, then you're going to want some assistance. You can still license your artwork, but you'll be looking for assistance on like what to create because you that's really important is making sure you're creating work that is licensable. And so your portfolio is going to be all of those things that are available for people to license. And so just like keeping all of that in mind is really important. Um, and we actually have some briefs that you can grab on our website for free that will help you build some pieces for your portfolio. It's called the free portfolio builder, and each one has copy ideas and a color palette. And so if you're like struggling with a place, oh, and a mood board, but if you're struggling with a place to get started with like your first few pieces, that's a really good place to start. So basically, what you'll have is several pieces of work that um, are available to license. That could be patterns, it could be spot graphics, but they're pieces that would work well on product, anything printed product. So I'm actually going to go to the second question first because it's how many pieces. And we're
Yeah,
talking
let's
right
do
now
it.
about what art should you put in your portfolio. But we always say like my portfolio has over 400 pieces in it, which sounds insane. It probably is insane. But when I first started, I worked with an agency and they had a requirement of how many pieces you did per month because it takes a lot of effort on their end to be promoting your work. And so they need a lot of content, basically. And I've since slowed down big time, but that took me like 5 years to build, which is still a hefty, actually 7-ish years, because I started it when my son was born. Um, so you don't need 500 pieces. Eventually, one day you'll have 500 pieces because they never go away unless they're fully like sold to a client, which is a little bit more rare. But we always say start with 15 to 30 because that number will give your client that you reach out to enough to see your work and like see the options and ideally pick more than one piece to license. Like maybe they'll be like, we're going to buy all three of these and put them on these three different products together. And that's the goal with licensing is to like get as many licenses stacked on top of each other as possible. So 15 to 30 pieces is a really, really good place to start. And you probably have like five at least in your client project rejects or like things that you've done that a client didn't go for, or just like things you've done when you were waiting in line, waiting on the airplane, something like that. So 15 to 30 pieces. And then
We
yeah,
we had a puppy cam sighting. Sorry about that. Well, I'm not sorry.
yeah,
You know
don't be
what? You're
sorry.
welcome, actually.
Yeah.
Um, and we've got a couple people saying hi in the chat that I just want to say hi to in the middle
Let's
as we're
do it.
talking. Hello to Courtney. That's our design daughter. We are we are her self-appointed design moms. So good to see you here in the chat. We have a good question too that we could get to at some point in this stream from Stock Meat. What an interesting name.
Yeah.
Um, I'm curious about the origin of this. How can we get work as illustrators in the age of AI?
Yeah,
An AI question.
we've got a whole page on that. It's coming for you.
Yeah.
Love that.
Okay.
And then Allison, you have a really great comment is don't put anything in your portfolio that you don't love. And when I said I have
Mm-hmm.
400 pieces, I would say that like 350 of them are things that I don't love. So that's a really good point because when I license them, I'm not excited and I don't really want to share about them. And sharing your work is like the best way to get more work. And so, yeah,
Yeah,
don't put it in if you love it.
we actually had Ilana and I have just merged our art licensing portfolios into one, and now we're collaborating, creating together. And so we had a meeting trying to decide like which of our pieces do we want to keep in the portfolio, which do we want to like massage and change, and which are we going to let go of. And there is that fine line between like, some pieces aren't your number one favorites, but they can occasionally make money. Like Ilana has sold a lot of simple patterns, whereas
Yeah.
I've never sold anything like that. So,
You've
you
never
know,
made anything simple.
in my life.
Like in a
Yeah.
good way. Like your work is very detail driven and that's what makes it so beautiful. You wouldn't spend your time being like, well, it's simple enough. Like I'd be like, it's simple enough, let's go.
Yeah. So I would say there's like, you definitely,
Fine
especially
line.
with freelance work, you always want to put your best work forward. When it comes to art licensing and you've got a really big portfolio, some of those like pieces that you're less excited about can still have their place and live in there. You just don't like make them the stars, and you don't typically
Yes.
like approach a new client like, hey, here's my least favorite piece.
Yes.
But if somebody's like looking through your catalog for something specific, they might just stumble on that random stripe you made
Yeah.
like 5 years ago and say, oh, this is the perfect thing.
I will say there's like it's definitely a double-edged sword because the when you keep the work as being like making it precious in the licensing world, then you have fewer opportunities for buyers to like buy more stuff from you. But if you're not proud of the work, then that's no good either. And so I think
Yeah.
there's a level in everything we do where we have to let go a little bit and like we could work on something forever. And so just remember that your portfolio will only grow bigger because you'll just keep adding to it. And it rarely shrinks. I mean, you can take things out, you can revisit them, that's fine, but your portfolio pretty much always just gets bigger. And so not one piece in there should be like the holy grail. However, if you do have a piece that you are so fond of, there's two terms that you want to think about with clients, and that's a buyout or a license. And a buyout is work for hire, basically. It's the same in the sense that when you do work for hire, they're buying the work that you create. And so they fully own the rights to it. And so if you have a piece that you feel like this is the best thing I've ever done, I wouldn't suggest selling it as a full buyout. I would suggest really trying to get a license because you want to like get more life out of it. But again, it's like if they're like, here's $200,000 for a full buyout, and you're like, okay, fine. Like it's a case by case, but that was what one of my agents had said is like, if there's anything that you love so much, let's mark it as not available for full buyout because you love it enough that you want to see it like keep going. A really good example of that is Rifle Paper Company. Anna Bond is the illustrator behind that. And if you think of her work, you can recognize it because she has like collections of patterns. And one pattern you could see on like 20 different collaborations. So you could see it at maybe
Hmm.
Target. You could see it on Ked's shoes. You could see it on her line. You could see it on rugs. And so she owns the rights and is renting them. Obviously, I don't know her contracts, but logistically, I have to assume that's how it's working. So yeah, that's a good example of it.
We have a really good
Yeah,
question for Monica that I think makes sense to
let's
answer
do
right
it.
now. So Monica is asking, do you update the pieces after they've been licensed with like the real product photos or a list of the history of its licenses?
Yeah, so our licensing portfolios are basically a one-page site on our website. We use Squarespace, and it has all low-res JPEGs of what is available. And we have just a few mock-ups. This actually is like a two for one because two of these questions are on here basically. We rarely use mock-ups on our actual licensing portfolio page because typically a client comes in and they're like, I'm looking for art for water bottles. They don't need to see it mocked up on a sleeping bag. They like are coming in with the knowledge of how something will translate and they sort of have an idea of what they're looking for. So our way of including mock-ups just to like because they're really beautiful and it helps you to just showcase what you've got is we put like a couple mock-ups maybe at the top or on our website in other places and then the rest of that entire page is tiny low-res JPEGs of our artwork that just like are divided by category. So
Mm-hmm.
when a piece is licensed, you can leave it on your website as long as you know the terms, so that if another client wants to license it, you can just say to them, it's licensed, it'll be available this date. Because it would be a lot to manage like each one and knowing when it's available and not. But anything that is a full buyout where you no longer have the rights to license it, I would remove from your website
Yeah.
because then someone's going to want something that they can't have. But you could include it on your social channels. You could include it on a different page on your website to show past projects. And that way you're still showing off that skill set. And a client can say to you, we love this style. Can we have it in something that makes sense for us?
Ryan's asking, what was it like seeing your work in a store for the first time? Do you remember the very first time that you saw your
Yes.
work in a store?
Yes. My very first licensing project, I went into Michael's and I saw it was like very surreal. Like I didn't, so I went into the project not knowing if I would get paid basically because they were like, you'll get this much of sales. And I was like, what if it doesn't sell? Like I didn't know anything. And this was a brand that like had deals with Michael's and like, I just didn't know. And so it was so cool. I was hooked. I
Yeah.
was basically like, no, I have to do this for the rest of my life now. What about for you, Katie?
Um, I can't remember the first time something was in a store. I don't know why this is blurry for me, but I remember one of the early projects that I did with licensing was like a 36 card collection.
Yeah.
So I went to, they were showing the cards at a licensing trade show, and I went
Wait,
and
I
they
didn't know
had,
that. That's so cool.
yeah, and I went and it was in Miami. We were just talking about Miami.
Did you go
And
just for that?
uh-huh, yeah,
Oh,
they just
wait, I
wanted me
do remember when we
to
were
come
in
out for
Miami,
that.
you were telling me about that. That's so
Mm-hmm.
cool.
Yeah, and they just had one of those big rotating card racks, but I had
Yeah.
made enough cards for
It
it
was
to
a
be
whole
all
rack.
mine. It was a whole rack of just my designs, and I was like, "Oh my gosh," because it had taken me like probably 4 months to complete the whole project, and just seeing everything together like that was so cool. Yeah, that
Yeah.
was definitely like a hooked on licensing moment for
Oh my
sure.
gosh. Wow, that's so cool. Does anyone have any more questions about your portfolio specifically?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've covered these, and now I see some new questions. Ryan's got a question about promoting. We've got that we can jump to next. I think we had another question
Yeah.
about like how to book things. But if you have anything else about portfolio, yeah, let us know and we'll move on. So
Yeah, so it's maybe let's start with Monica's original question about
yeah.
like how difficult is it to find your first art licensing opportunity and where do beginners need to look?
Yeah, that's really a
I'm getting
great
attacked by
question.
a mosquito.
So your first licensing gig will probably come one of two ways. It'll either come from you sharing work that makes sense for licensing, or it will come from you doing outreach. And so outreach is literally like the modern day cold calling, which is, we're not actually calling someone on the telephone. Thank goodness. We're
Hmm.
millennials. We don't do that. Um, so outreach is something that has booked Katie and I like hundreds and thousands of dollars of work over the years. And we basically have a template. Actually, we have a copy of our template in our class that we teach. But basically, we say like we find someone maybe on LinkedIn or find someone if we go shopping and we see a brand that we really want to work with. We'll do some like light research, maybe more like stalking, yeah, internet stalking, like in a
Gentle
very
stalking.
in a very
with their best intentions in mind.
best intent. Yes, we're not, we don't need to know everything about their life, but like, are they on LinkedIn? Are they on Instagram? And do they have a cool dog we can mention? And so we like keep a running list of this and we send outreach emails every month to people who we want to work with. And yeah, so we send outreach emails and we'll say like um first we always lead with human connection. That's what people want. You oftentimes get the job because you made a connection, not because you're the best artist in the world. Like that's not a thing. And so we'll send an email that says like why we like the brand, a little bit about ourselves, and then asking for an opportunity to chat with them or learn more about licensing with them. And then we'll share very low res JPEGs, maybe like 3 to 6 that fit in the email, like not a Google Drive link, like not some crazy PDF that they need to download and open, but just like a couple of JPEGs that say, I pulled these from my portfolio that I think will be a
Hmm.
good fit for you. Let me know if you want to see more. And then, of course, we also link to our website because that makes us look professional. And again, ours is on Squarespace. You can do it
I
wherever
just
you want.
shared the link in the chat. Although
Yeah.
I'm old, how are y'all getting them to be actual hyperlinks? Because every time I post it, it just is text. But anyway,
Hmm.
it's in there if
Yeah.
somebody wants
Okay.
to fix it.
Yeah. So we'll send these outreach emails and then there are platforms you can use that you can track like who's if they responded and stuff like that. But we actually just use a spreadsheet, like a Google sheet, and we just like track who responded, when we wrote
Yeah.
them, and
But
then,
it's a pretty
follow up
legit
accordingly.
sheet. There's like a lot of
Oh, it's
things that we track.
legit, but
Yeah.
it's more work than if we used one of those systems that could automatically do that for us.
Yeah,
Um,
and there was a
yeah.
question if we have some of these things like templatized available
Yes.
anywhere, and we do.
Yes.
We have a course called the Art Licensing Blueprint where we have all sorts of things templatized. Our outreach emails, we explain in depth like a lot more about how you can
Yeah.
do outreach, and then we also have our tracking spreadsheet that Ilana was just talking about in
Yeah.
that course as well.
And then
Um,
we
yeah,
also,
I'll drop the link for that as
yeah,
well.
that's great. We also have the email template in our emails as a template. Like you can save an email that you write to someone as a template. But the thing that really I think pushes it over the edge is when you personalize it. And so yeah, it's a template. It says like, here's the link to my portfolio, here's the this, I'm a this. But the actual like meat and potatoes of the email is like, I noticed that you did your products have X, Y, and Z, and that's really important to me. It's really great if you can find an overlap between like one of your hobbies and your creative skills. And so for me, I am new to mountain biking, but I'm from a bike family. Not from, I have a bike family. Like my husband's a big biker. And so like pedal bikes. And so now I want to do work with more mountain bike companies. And so I could reach out to them and say, like, I just like, I joined this group and we're doing mountain biking. We just did this beautiful trail and I've been wearing your kits for a while. And then like, I'd love to design one for you. That's like a natural lead in.
Yeah,
And so
super
I think
authentic.
that really gives them a like personal, even if you're like, oh, I'm passionate about dogs and I noticed you have a corgi. Like that's great. They're gonna remember that,
Mm-hmm.
and you're gonna remember. So outreach is super important, and we do that probably once a month. Um, Go through and like update our outreach. And it's how we've booked most of our jobs. Of course, you can also book them from like if you have your work on Behance or you have your own website or you're on social media. But oftentimes people will ask us, should I have a social, like, do I need a big following? And the answer is always no. You don't need a big following. Some of the most successful people who license their work like don't use uh, social media at all. However, it is another place to get your work in front of people. So there's no harm in sharing your work there on whatever platform you choose, whether it's
Yeah.
Pinterest, LinkedIn, Instagram, whatever it is a really great idea.
On that note, Catalina's saying like, "Oh, a lot of artists are including in their portfolios like a section that says previous clients and collabs and like who I've worked with before. And Catalina's wondering if you don't have any of those things to include in your portfolio and you haven't worked for, any
Yeah.
of those like big client names yet, will future clients even look at your work?
Yeah, that's such a good question because I know in the publishing world, a lot of people say like you need an agent for someone to talk to you. And that's just like not true in every case. I've booked a publishing deal without an agent, and I think the same thing is true for licensing. Like they're looking at your work. They're not looking at like how many followers you have or how many people you've worked with before. I will say the other thing that you can do if you're like, I have nothing real in my portfolio, you can do work for a company that you believe in and make it the best work you've ever made, pro bono. And I know
Mhm.
this like opens up a can of worms, but like you can do free work to get your feet wet. And I don't think that's a bad idea. I think you just have to have some guidelines around it. But no, you don't need like clout and like awards or achievements in order to like get other clients to notice you. They just want to see that you can do the work.
Yeah, and when we talk about free work, it doesn't even necessarily have to be for a client. Like
That's true.
you could find a cause that you really believe in and support like a nonprofit or something. But
Yeah.
a lot of the ways that Alana and I have gotten work is through passion projects.
Yes.
And I do these all the time, and we're actually working on some in the background right now. So they're just things that you're like the kind of dream work that you want to get, just creating your own project brief without a client even telling you to do it. And you create that work on your own and put it in your portfolio. And you can kind of view your art licensing portfolio that way too. Like,
Yep.
oh, what's my dream product that I want my work to be on? And you can go
Right.
ahead and create that work. And then
Yeah.
you share that with people, and good work is good work. Like
Right.
it stands out on its own, and you don't have to have a list
Exactly.
of names of previous clients that you've worked with if the work is really strong and if you make that initial connection with them, like Alana was saying, like I've followed you and your like dog account, and
Yeah.
making those connections that like that makes you stand out so much more than seeing like a
Totally.
fancy client name on your portfolio
I
list.
I think the other thing is that the people in the licensing world are licensing like a lot of them are licensing hundreds of designs. And so they're just constantly looking. They're actually probably not, they're not a small business owner who's going to spend 2 hours on your website overthinking if they should hire you. It's not a $10,000 project. They're going to be much quicker. They're just looking at your work. Oftentimes, like this doesn't, I don't mean to sound negative, but like they might not care that much about what, you do in your free time. They care a lot about is does this work for my project? And that's not to say they don't care at all about your work, but they're coming in with a mission to like quickly find the art for their deadline. I've noticed that licensing while getting paid is like a very long, slow process. Getting the work to the client is like okay, we're ready. Here's the three things we needed yesterday. And so it's just like put yourself out there for sure. And if you don't have any experience, definitely fake the mock-ups for social media. Put the work that you have on your website. Like start small for sure and let people see how much potential you have. Don't wait until you have like 500 pieces to start sharing with people. Especially
And
because that client feedback is like going to help you with what you make next.
I think when an art buyer stumbles on the portfolio of someone who's quote unquote undiscovered, they might
Yeah.
be even more excited
Yeah.
than if they find somebody who, like, all these other competitor companies are working with,
Yeah.
because they have a chance to book you and really stand out because, you don't have your art in every single store yet. So I think that actually is kind of an advantage
Yeah.
in some ways.
Yeah. I just saw another really great question in about agents. So maybe this is a good segue to talk about agents.
Yeah, let's
Okay,
let's scroll on over.
perfect.
Scroll
Okay,
on over.
so for those of you who don't know, like the role of it, when I know you think whenever you sing, I just like ignore it, but I'm just so used to it. It's beautiful. Keep it coming. Um, so art licensing agents basically represent you, and they are really and other artists, and they are very connected in the licensing world. So all day, every day, they are talking to people who have company product companies and showing them the artwork in their portfolio, like hundreds and hundreds of pieces. And so a lot of people have decided, I think, that having an agent is like the key, the golden ticket to success. And it's just not. It is cool and it can be great, but it is not for everyone. It's not a one size fits all. It's not a guarantee of success. It is just a tool in your tool belt, and you can use it or you cannot. So we'll talk a little bit about the pros and cons. Um, because I'm trying to find the comment. Okay, Monica said, I've heard that an agent, you can't get an agent until you've done some work on your own. And so I was represented and I had a really great experience. And we actually interviewed her, and it's uh, in our course. And she said, I don't want people to reach out to me to represent them until they've booked several jobs on their own, because I want them to know what my role is. Because if you come in like blindly asking me to be your agent, it shows me that you don't actually know like what I do and don't necessarily know the value and like the process. And so I thought that was actually really great advice, because it's kind of like anything else in small business is um when you like have to hire out bookkeeping, like it's a good idea to like try and do it yourself first so you know how hard it is and why it's worth it to hire someone to do it. And so um, art licensing agent, typically, this is not like a across the board, but typically they take 50% of the project fee because they manage like all the business stuff. They manage the contract, they manage getting them the files, they manage booking the calls, anything that has to do with the product. The samples coming to you, if that's included, they advocate for you, and also they have the connections. Like you don't get an agent and then get all the connections that they have. Like those are like theirs to deal with. And I rarely had to be involved with any client communication, which
Yeah.
I missed, which is why now I'm really happy to not
Yeah,
be
you really
represented.
shine in that area for sure.
Yeah, thank you. And so they're not for everyone. And yeah, 50% is a huge chunk. So it's definitely do I have the time and the energy? Do I want to do this? But keep that in mind. And so, like I said, an agent's role is to represent you, to go out and get you jobs. And if you're at a big agency, they're doing that for everyone in the agency. And so, um, you might be, being pitched with a group of other people represented, or you might be getting more personalized kind of management. And they really should be handling like pretty much everything so that you can just make art. They also are in meetings all the time about trends so that the clients are telling them, like, we're looking for sea creatures this year. Sea creatures are hot. They're all the rage. And then, like, maybe they'll be saying neon colors are out. Pastel sea creatures is where, like, they're getting the inside scoop. They've got their, like, ear in it. So yeah, they're there.
I
They're the
need all
business
my
person.
pastel seahorses.
I mean,
Okay,
that sounds
let's get
nice.
them. Yeah, no,
Sounds
I
nice.
truly want that.
I do
And
love aquamarine life. Is that it?
aquamarine life.
Like anything
You
underwater.
just marine life.
Marine life. What's aquamarine? Just the color?
That's a color.
Okay, well, I like that too.
Aqua does mean water, so yeah, I think you just added one too many things, but I like it.
So
Um,
water life.
yeah, it's a little redundant, but it's
Okay,
a
bye.
um yeah, another thing, I don't did you mention that agents will go to like trade shows and
I
stuff like
didn't.
that as well? Yeah, so I mentioned before like when I went to Miami to see the all the my cards that I just created. That was a licensing trade show and they have a couple of those throughout the year and some
Yeah,
are I think a few might be still virtual. I don't know. But yeah, a lot of them are like big trade shows where they're in like huge convention centery type places and there's
yeah.
so many people with
So
different
overwhelming.
booths and it's like a very big thing, but agents will help you get in front of clients that are new to them and that are just like specifically looking for these types of things by going to these trade shows and they
Yeah,
usually have like big binders full of work or it is a modern age so they might have their digital displays now but I'm
yeah,
used to the like printed book
yes.
era still and I
I
think
mean,
there's something nice about that
there
too.
is, but the thing is, when there's 50 artists and then you need
Yeah.
50 books. Like shipping that is crazy. So
Yeah.
I do see the value.
Yeah.
But I did also want to say, someone had a really good comment. Oh, Allison said she's old school and likes communicating with the client. I don't think that's old school. I actually feel like we now want to talk to people even more. Like,
Yeah.
I think
Well,
post-COVID
that's
era, where
such a good skill to have too.
it's
Like
so
that's
good.
so valuable.
And you get 100% of your payment. Like, especially with some of these smaller projects, licensing a single greeting card and giving up 50%, um, is it still worth it at that low cost? And so sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. And I will say I had a great experience with my last agent. I'm really excited to be independent because Katie and I are working together now. But I did really miss that piece of it. But I also want to make it clear that, if an agent is going to do all this work, because there's a ton of work in the marketing component that they're doing that isn't forward facing. Like it's not Instagram. It's literally talking to these clients that they've built connections with over the last like 20 to 50 years that they've, worked with for ages. And if they're going to put all that effort into that and managing all your files, then, they deserve a big cut of that. And yeah, I think it's just important to know that they're doing a lot of the work that maybe you don't see having done because maybe you haven't done it yet, or maybe just, you know, maybe that type of work really stresses you out and it's worth it. So it's totally a personal decision. And we've worked with students who have had really good luck and some that are like, oh, I guess I really don't want that. So it's
Yeah.
totally up to you. It does not, two people could make the same amount of money at the end of the day, um, or have vastly different experiences with one way versus the other.
And if you aren't sure if an agent is the right fit for you or if an agent is the right agent out of many different options for you,
Yeah.
typically the contract that you're going to sign with an agent, usually you want to do like a starter, like a tester kind of contract. So
Yes.
it should be like 6 months and under. 6 months, I think, is a good amount of time for you to like see if there's any traction. They have enough time to get your work out in front of some of their clients, and you can see like, okay, what does it actually look like to work with this person? And then you can kind of make a mutual decision on if you want to continue the contract or if like maybe
Yeah.
it's not the right fit.
A good a good thing to note with that also is if you're coming to an agent and you only have 15 to 30 pieces, first of all, onboarding to an agency takes a long time because they need to like manage all your files and get your bio and get you up on their site, and get you like really integrated. But also, if you're coming with very few pieces of artwork and they're pitching their whole, library of artists, then you really want to be adding quite a bit to your portfolio pretty quickly. And so do you have the capacity for that? And if
Yeah.
not, how will you manage to continue adding to your portfolio, which was my downfall, is like we had busy seasons and then we have slow seasons. And so how can you consistently like add a few pieces to your portfolio every month? Because a lot of people, and something we recommend, is not diving into art licensing with both feet, but using it as a passive income stream in addition to something you're already doing, like freelance.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think that's just something really good to know.
Yeah, art licensing takes a lot of nurturing and it does snowball over time. So if you're looking for a get rich quick scheme, I'm
This
going
ain't
to
it.
suggest to look elsewhere. This is more something that you have to really invest in for the long term, and then you really see those benefits on those months where you don't, like a freelance client ghosted and you're like, dang, but then you look at your bank account and you got a direct deposit from a license that you had out from like 3 years ago. Like that's the rewards that your future self is going to reap from doing these kind of
Definitely.
things.
Yeah.
And I think, do you want to go ahead and move over to like the pricing and that kind of
Yeah.
section? Because we have a really good question
Yeah.
about like
I was actually gonna
modification.
kind of see if we should do a poll maybe, and ask if people want to do a part two of this style video. We've
That's a
got a
good
couple other
question.
things to
Yeah.
cover in this series. We've got four more shows for this art licensing lab. We plan to do another one on patterns because last week we showed what creating a very basic pattern looks like. So would you like a video like this? We've got a poll in the comments. And then we've also are hoping to do something maybe like sketching, how to come up with ideas for licensing. So if you've got other suggestions, drop them in Discord or email us if that's easier, because I think we've got so much more to cover here. But yeah, we want to go over to
Yeah.
pricing.
Yeah, let's scooch on over there since we did have a question about I think it was in here like yeah, Ryan's question about if you have any modification rights, like do we charge extra for that or do they come
Yeah.
back for every Oh, I see what he's asking. He's asking like once they get the piece of art, can they just do whatever they want with it?
That's such a
That's
good question
yeah.
because I one time got like, I think I either saw something in stores or I got a sample and I was like, wait, no, I got a sample. And I was like, wait, this is not what I gave them.
Yeah.
So
I've
they
seen my
do.
colors look real rough
The
after.
colors specifically. And the thing is, when you work with someone who is a product-based business, they kind of know what sells for their particular product. You know, they do a lot of market research. They know what stores they're selling in. They know what demographic. Whereas like we're making beautiful art that could get interpreted for a lot of different things. And so, yeah, they can change the colors. They can, and this should all be covered in your contract, but typically they can change the colors, and that's okay because they want it to sell. And so they're changing them to make it sell. Um, they've also, I've had pieces where they like made it kind of not a pop-up card, but a dimensional card, and then they added rhinestones, like actual rhinestones, which was super cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
And so yeah, they have the right to adjust as needed for print. And so when you sign a contract, you're going to deliver them a fully editable, like InDesign, I mean, Illustrator or Photoshop file, and they're going to go to town on it and
And
prep it.
just to be clear, that's how things normally
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
As the artist and somebody who can create your own contract, you can put whatever you want in that contract.
Right.
It's just whether or not clients will be willing to sign it, whether it's a little bit over the top from typical like industry expectations. So, I mean, you could be like, you could put whatever you want in your contract. It's
Yeah.
just like it's especially the companies that are license more frequently, they're gonna be like, no, our legal team is not gonna be okay with that, and we're
Yeah.
not gonna like be able to track that and keep on top of whether or not we're following each person's specific contract. So
Yeah. So yeah, they're going to push for that for sure. And honestly, as much as I would love every client to sign my contract, pretty much
yeah.
everyone I've worked with has had a contract ready to go, and it's less work if I sign theirs. And they're pretty straightforward, I've found. They're not like 20 pages long. They're pretty simple. Here's the term. And also having an agent, they'll help you like distill it, and you don't have, they'll sign like um, a big contract where it covers like any work with that one client. And so that's also nice is when you just have to review what they've sent and you don't have to like figure out what to change.
Yeah, contracts are like a whole discussion on their own, and it's not just a day discussion. It's like such a thing,
Yeah.
but we've learned so much about how to read other people's contracts
Yeah.
by really creating our own contracts and talking with our lawyer and like really understanding what all the sections mean. So now we're able to like scan through contracts and flag things really quickly because we know what we're looking for. And if
Yeah.
y'all need contract support, we do have contract templates in our shop at
Yeah.
goodtype.us. And we actually like go through with our lawyer. She explains what like each section means and how to
Yeah.
adapt it for your own needs. And there's lots of different types of contracts for different scenarios, not just licensing. So I think that could be really helpful if you're like super overwhelmed by contracts, like we were in the
Exactly.
beginning.
Yeah, no, that's super helpful. I feel like doing that, watching those, I mean, recording those videos with with our lawyer is what allowed me to feel more confident about reading other people's contracts. So that's a great place to start. But yeah, let's go through
Yeah, and they
these
dropped
four.
that in the chat, the link. Thank you
Perfect.
guys so much.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so we've got a couple. Oh, do you have portfolio tips or plans to do reviews? So I want to answer that one because in our program, the Art Licensing Blueprint, we used to do live calls where we would record, but then you had to sit through everyone else's work getting reviewed. So we have a private channel within our class where you can upload your work at any time and ask for feedback. But we also have a channel on Slack as well, that people just can share their work and the community will chime in. So yeah, we always are giving reviews.
We could
Um,
also do a portfolio review as one of these episodes if y'all really wanted
Ooh,
that. So if you do want it in the chat and you would submit your portfolio or you have something to submit,
yeah,
give us a shout out in the chat, or maybe y'all can do another poll or something, and then we
love
can
that.
see if we have any interest for that.
Okay, cool. Love that. And I'm looking to see if there's any other questions that we've missed so far. Oh, how
Um,
often do we meet with our lawyer?
yeah.
Yeah, we're happy to always drop that information. We'll do it in Discord. Um, and we don't meet with them unless we have to.
Yeah, no, yeah, I don't want to give the impression that we're constantly like on the phone with our lawyer.
No, never,
I think
never.
we just set up our basic business things with our lawyer Elise. She's here in Austin, and she's specifically a lawyer for creatives, which
Yeah,
is so cool because she understands what we go through and like what kind of protections we need. But mostly we've just had her to set up our business, set up the initial contracts, and then we just occasionally ping her with questions. So,
yeah.
yeah, just
And we
just being
actually,
involved in art licensing doesn't mean you have to constantly be
no,
on the phone with your lawyer. If you're
no,
scared,
yeah, like
that's
pretty
not the
much
vibes.
never. But we do have a whole one of these over here that covers all the questions we typically get about legal stuff. And so it
Mhm.
looks like people are saying they would love to have a another session like this.
Part
So we'll
two.
cover that in the next one for sure. If you didn't vote, you can still, I think we're good. Yeah. The
Yeah,
poll
we had
has won.
94% yes.
Yeah, so we'll do that.
Great.
But real quick, let's just answer like one more of these and then we'll wrap up for today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so let's just cover this one since it's a simple one. But a lot of people get confused because Society6, Redbubble, Zazzle, all of these sites where you can print on demand or like list your work, um, it's sort of licensing, but not in the same sense. And so, yes, and maybe is the answer. So what we're talking about is specifically printed goods with manufacturing partners. And print on demand can go on your own site, or you can, do it through one of those like third party sites. And technically, you're giving, Society6 or whoever a license to print that, but they're not mass marketing it then to Target and World Market and Michaels and Marshalls and things like that. So it's like, yes, there's a license, just like when you design something for a client freelance and it's not like branded to them, you might be giving them a license for how long they can use your work. Like for this one campaign, you can use this. And so, yes and no. I don't know if there's a simpler way to answer that.
Yeah, I think that was great.
Great.
Um, in the chat, I think if y'all could give us your licensing portfolio links in the Discord channel, and there's a
Yeah.
link to that if you scroll up a little bit, then we can look through and see if we have enough to do a portfolio review. Just if you put the link, you're uh, allowing us to do a
Yeah.
portfolio review, I guess. So
Yeah.
just want to be clear about what that means, or like
I,
say for the
yeah.
portfolio review next to it, just so we're clear that you're submitting your portfolio for that.
And we always come in with like, we're always trying to change the conversation around critiques because we don't want to come in and just um, be unkind. We want to give you constructive and
Oh
really
yeah.
helpful feedback. And so if
It's such
you,
a safe space
it's a
when
safe
we do
space.
a critique, we
Yeah.
swear. So yeah,
Awesome. Cool.
it looks like it's about time for us to wrap this up. It seems like this was very well received. It seems like y'all had a lot of amazing questions. We know licensing is so cool. Obviously, we're obsessed with it. And we have so much to share about it. So again, keep those questions coming in the Discord. Send in your portfolio links so that we can potentially do a follow-up on that. And thank y'all so much for
Yeah.
tuning in. We love being here, and thanks for
Yeah.
watching.
See you next week.